Dr. Arya Chen stood at the front of her classroom, holding a small stone tablet covered in strange flowing symbols. Sunlight streamed through the massive windows of Harmony 7 space station, making the ancient markings seem to glow. Today, we're studying one of Earth's most puzzling languages, Arya announced to her students. 20 different alien species sat before her, all eager to learn about human history. The tablet in her hands was supposed to be over 3,000 years old. Scientists had found it on an abandoned colony world, buried deep underground. Nobody had been able to translate it completely. The language looked familiar to experts, but something about it felt wrong, like a song played in the wrong key. Zeftar, a tall Velkarian student with silver skin and 4 arms, raised one hand. Professor Chen, may I attempt the translation? Arya smiled and nodded. The Velkarians were known for their gift with languages. She handed the tablet to Zeftar carefully. The young alien studied the symbols for a moment, running thin fingers across the carved surface. Then Zeftar began to read aloud in perfect English. Today, I turned 23. Mother gave me this journal and told me to write my truths in it. I'm scared about tomorrow's interview, but I'm trying to be brave. The classroom buzzed with excitement. Other students leaned forward, amazed that Zeftar could read what experts couldn't. But Arya's face had gone pale. She grabbed the edge of her desk to steady herself. Stop, she whispered. Then louder. Stop reading, please. Zeftar looked up, confused. Professor? Did I translate incorrectly? Arya's hands trembled as she took the tablet back. She stared at the words, her heart pounding. The handwriting style, the personal details, even the way certain letters curved. She knew all of it. This can't be right, Arya said quietly. Her students exchanged worried glances. Professor Chen never looked uncertain. She was always confident and calm. What's wrong? Asked Mira, a small Teppan student whose fur changed colors with her emotions. Right now, it was shifting to concerned purple. Arya sat down slowly in her chair. This tablet is supposed to be 3,000 years old. But what Zeftar just read, those are my grandmother's words. From her personal journal. From when she was 23 years old. The classroom erupted. Students spoke over each other in a dozen different languages. That's impossible. The carbon dating was verified. Maybe it's just similar? Arya shook her head. My grandmother told me this story. She was nervous about a job interview. Her mother, my great-grandmother, gave her a journal that day. She wrote exactly these words. Arya's voice grew stronger as memory confirmed what seemed impossible. She mentioned being scared, but trying to be brave. Those exact words. But Professor, Zeftar said carefully, your grandmother would be. How old? 63, Arya replied. Very much alive. Living in Seattle on Earth. A heavy silence fell over the classroom. If Arya's grandmother was 63, she had written those words only 40 years ago, not 3,000 years ago. Corvell, a logical Zenthari student, spoke up. There must be an explanation. Could someone have copied her journal? Why would they? Arya asked. And how would they make it look 3,000 years old? The tests were done by the best laboratories in the galaxy. Arya pulled out her personal comm device with shaking hands. I need to call her. Right now. The students watched in absolute silence as Arya activated the quantum communication system. It took a few moments for the signal to reach Earth. Then a hologram appeared above the device. An elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair smiled at Arya. Sweetheart, what a lovely surprise. Is everything all right? Grandma, Arya said, trying to keep her voice steady. I need to ask you something strange. When you were 23, did you write in a journal about being scared about an interview? Her grandmother's expression grew distant with memory. Oh my. Yes. That was the interview for my first teaching position. Mother gave me a beautiful journal that day. I was so nervous. She chuckled softly. I wrote that I was trying to be brave, even though I felt terrified. What happened to that journal? Arya asked. It was lost, dear. There was a house fire when I was 25. Not a big one, but my bedroom closet was damaged. That journal was in a box there. The firefighters said everything in the closet was destroyed. Her grandmother's face showed concern now. Arya, why are you asking about this? Arya turned her comm device so her grandmother could see the tablet. Because someone carved your exact words into this stone. And scientists are saying it's 3,000 years old. The hologram showed her grandmother's shocked face. She leaned closer, squinting at the symbols. That's impossible. I wrote those words in 2346. That's only 40 years ago. I know, Grandma. But the tablet was found on Colony World 7, buried 15 meters underground. Every test says it's ancient. Mira raised a small paw. Professor, what does this mean? Arya looked at her students, then back at the tablet in her hands. It means someone or something has been collecting human writings. Private, personal writings, and somehow making them look ancient. She paused, a chill running down her spine. The question is, why? Her grandmother's voice came through the comm, worried now. Arya, be careful. If someone went to that much trouble, I will, Grandma. I promise. She stood up and addressed her class. Tomorrow, we're not having a regular lesson. We're going to investigate this mystery. She held up the tablet. She held up. We're not having a regular lesson. Someone out there is collecting pieces of human hearts, our private thoughts, our secret fears, our personal moments. We're going to find out who and why. Zeftar stood up, all four arms crossed with determination. We'll help you, Professor. One by one, every student in the classroom stood up, ready to assist. Arya smiled despite her worry. Then let's begin. Arya and her students spent 3 days tracking down information about the mysterious tablet. They contacted archaeologists, checked shipping records, and studied maps of Colony World 7. Every clue led them deeper into the puzzle. Finally, they discovered something important. All the ancient tablets came from one source, a private collector who lived on a small, isolated moon called Whisper's Edge. The collector's name is Keeper Tholmaris, Zeftar announced, reading from a data screen. They belong to the Chronari species. Mira's fur turned bright orange with curiosity. I've heard of the Chronari. They experience time differently than we do. They can see past, present, and future, all at once. Arya nodded slowly. That might explain how they're aging the tablets. If they can move through time. She didn't finish the thought. It seemed too incredible. Should we contact the authorities? Asked Corvo logically. Not yet, Arya said. We don't know if any crime has actually been committed. Let's go talk to Tholmaris first. Understand before we accuse. The next day, Arya took a small shuttle to Whisper's Edge, bringing Zeftar, Mira, and Corvel with her. The moon was beautiful, covered in silver trees that chimed softly in the wind. A single dome structure sat in a peaceful valley. As they approached, the dome's door opened. A tall, shimmering figure stepped out. Tholmaris looked like they were made of starlight, their form constantly shifting between slightly different versions of themselves, all existing at the same moment. Dr. Arya Chen, Tholmaris said, in a voice that echoed strangely, as if speaking from multiple times at once. I've been expecting you. I saw you coming 3 days ago. I saw you arriving just now. I see you leaving tomorrow with understanding. Arya stepped forward carefully. Then you know why we're here. I do, Thulmaris replied. You want to know about the tablets, about the letters, about why I've been taking things that belong to humans. The Chronari's form flickered with what might have been sadness. Please, come inside. I owe you an explanation. The inside of the dome took Arya's breath away. Everywhere she looked, there were preserved human writings. Letters in glass cases, journals on careful shelves, scraps of paper with poems, notes scribbled on napkins. Millions upon millions of pieces of human thoughts. What is all this? Mira whispered, her fur cycling through colors too fast to identify. Thulmaris moved through the collection, touching displays gently. This is humanity's heart, they said softly. These are the words humans wrote when they thought nobody was watching. Private moments, secret feelings, honest thoughts. Arya felt anger rising in her chest. You stole these. These are private. I borrowed them, Thulmaris corrected, their voice filled with genuine regret. And only from moments just before they would be destroyed forever. The Chronari turned to face Arya directly. Because I experience all time at once, I can see when things are about to be lost. A fire about to start. A flood about to sweep away a box of letters. A journal about to be thrown into the trash. That doesn't give you the right, Arya began. You're correct, Thulmaris interrupted gently. It doesn't. But please, let me explain fully before you judge. Thulmaris led them deeper into the collection. They stopped at a display showing a letter written on yellowed paper. This letter was written by a soldier named James in the year 1944, Earth time. He wrote it to his daughter the night before a great conflict. He never got to send it, he fell the next day. The letter was in his pocket. It would have been lost forever, buried with him in an unmarked grave. Thulmaris moved to another display. This diary belonged to a young girl named Yuki during Earth's darkest war period. She wrote about hope and kindness, even when surrounded by fear. Her diary was going to burn when her city was destroyed. The Chronari's form shimmered with emotion. This poem was written by a teenager named Marcus, who felt alone in the universe. He threw it away, thinking it was worthless. But his words about finding courage in darkness are beautiful. Arya looked around at thousands of similar displays. For centuries, I've been collecting these moments, Thulmaris continued. I use Chronari technology to step into the timeline just before destruction happens. I take the document, preserve it, and return it to the exact moment I took it from. The preservation process ages them artificially. That's why they seem ancient. But why? Zeftar asked. Why do you do this? Thulmaris was quiet for a long moment. Because your species does something extraordinary. Humans write down your feelings not for history books or public records. You write for yourselves. You put your souls on paper, expecting nobody else to ever see it. The Chronari moved to a central display, showing thousands of letters floating in soft light. Other species communicate their history carefully. They record facts and important events. But humans? Humans write, I'm scared, in a private journal. You write, I love you in letters you might never send. You write down dreams and fears, and hopes that exist only in quiet moments. Mira stepped closer to one display, reading a child's note to their future self. Her fur had turned a soft, warm pink. Don't you see? Thulmaris asked. These aren't just words. They're proof that humans feel deeply, even when alone. You create beauty that was never meant to last. And I couldn't bear to let all that truth disappear into nothing. Corval spoke up, their logical mind working through the problem. But these are private thoughts. People wrote them, believing they would remain private, or be destroyed. Taking them, even to preserve them, violates that trust. You're right. Thulmaris agreed immediately. I know this, but I also know that in these preserved words, your species' true strength shows. Not your technology, or your power, your emotional honesty, your courage to feel and express feelings, even in secret. Arya walked slowly through the collection, her anger mixing with wonder. She found her grandmother's journal entry, preserved perfectly. Next to it was a letter from a great-great-grandfather she'd never known existed, words her family thought were lost forever. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Thulmaris's form solidified slightly, showing resignation. "That decision is yours, Dr. Chen. I've been collecting in secret because I knew humans might not understand. But now you've found me." The Chronari spread their arms wide. Arya looked at her students, then back at the endless collection of human hearts preserved in light. "We need to take this to the Galactic Council," she said finally. "This isn't a decision I can make alone." "I understand," Thulmaris replied. "I've seen this moment coming for a long time. I'm ready." Monoculske, 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 Monoculske. News of Thulmaris's collection spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every major news network was discussing the Archive of Stolen Hearts, as some called it, or the Library of Lost Voices, as others preferred. The Galactic Council called an emergency session on the capital station, Unity Prime. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the massive council chamber. Arya stood in the witness area, nervous but determined. Thulmaris stood beside her, their shimmering form calm and ready. Chancellor Vex Anna, a wise Korthon, with deep blue skin and kind eyes, called the session to order. "We are here to decide the fate of Keeper Thulmaris's collection. This matter affects not just the Chronari and humans, but our understanding of privacy, preservation, and cultural legacy across all species." The human delegation sat in a special section, and Arya noticed they were clearly divided. Some faces showed anger, others showed curiosity. A few showed tears. Ambassador Liu, Earth's senior representative, stood first. "This collection represents a massive violation of human privacy. Private journals, personal letters, intimate thoughts. None of these were meant for public viewing. We demand their immediate destruction." But before she could sit down, another human representative stood. Dr. Marcus Webb, a historian, spoke with passion. "Wait! Before we destroy anything, we must consider what we're losing. My great-grandfather's final letter is in that collection. My family thought it was lost forever in a flood. Those words brought us closure after 70 years of wondering what he wanted to tell us." The chamber erupted with voices. Chancellor Vex Anna called for order. A Velkarian diplomat stood next, her forearms gesturing elegantly. "The Velkarians believe all knowledge should be preserved. But we also understand that consent matters. Perhaps there is a middle path?" From another section, a Grath warrior named Krontek rose to his full impressive height. "The Grath were known for their strength and honor-based culture. Before this collection, my people believed humans were soft. We thought your emotions made you weak." He paused, his deep voice filling the chamber. "But reading the preserved letters taught us something important. We found journals where humans wrote through their grief, working through loss instead of letting it destroy them. We saw strength we didn't understand before." Mira, attending as one of Arya's student witnesses, watched as her professor stood to testify. The small Teppan's fur rippled with nervous green colors. "Honored Council," Arya began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I came here angry. My grandmother's private journal was taken and preserved without permission. I felt violated on her behalf." She took a breath. "But then I found something else in the collection. A letter from my great-great-grandfather to his daughter, my great-grandmother. A letter that was lost in a flood before it could be delivered." Arya activated a hologram, showing the old handwritten letter. In this letter, he apologized for not being home more. He told her how proud he was of her. He shared wisdom about facing hard times with grace. Her voice caught slightly. My great-grandmother died wondering if her father was proud of her. She never knew. But now, because of this collection, my family finally has those answers. She looked around the chamber. So, I'm torn. My grandmother deserves privacy. But my great-grandmother deserved to know she was loved. How do we balance these needs? A Zenthari philosopher named Kelthar stood next. The Zenthari valued pure logic above all else. I have studied the human writings in this collection. I discovered something fascinating. Humans use personal writing as a tool for problem solving. You work through complex emotions by putting them into words, even when no one will read them. Kelthar displayed several journal entries as examples. This human wrote about a difficult choice and reached a solution through the writing process. This one processed grief by writing letters to someone who had passed away. Your species uses private writing as external memory and emotional computation. This is more sophisticated than we understood. Write. 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 Chancellor Vexana turned to Tholmaris. Keeper, you have been silent. What do you wish to say? Tholmaris's form flickered through several time states before settling. I see all the outcomes of this decision simultaneously. I see timelines where the collection is destroyed, and humanity loses pieces of its soul it will never recover. I see timelines where everything is made public, and trust is broken forever. I see timelines where wise compromise leads to understanding. The Kranari's voice grew softer. But in my desire to preserve beauty, I forgot something crucial. These words were written by people who made a choice to keep their thoughts private or let them disappear. By taking that choice away, even with good intentions, I caused harm. I see that now across all timelines. An elderly human woman's hologram suddenly appeared in the witness area. It was Arya's grandmother, joining remotely from Earth. I have something to say, she announced firmly. That journal entry about my job interview? I was embarrassed when I learned it had been preserved. Those were private, scared thoughts from a young woman. She paused, looking at the assembled council. But after learning about this collection, I've been thinking, what if my fear, my honesty about being scared but choosing to be brave anyway, helps someone else? A young person facing their own scary interview might read my words and feel less alone. She took a breath. I'm not saying Tholmaris was right to take our words without permission, but I am saying that maybe some of us would choose to share our private moments if we knew they could help others. This sparked intense discussion throughout the chamber. Species debated in clusters. Translators working overtime. A young human activist named Sarah Chen, no relation to Arya, stood up from the public gallery. I have a question for everyone here. How many of you have ever written something private? A diary entry. A letter you didn't send. Hands, tentacles, wings, and various appendages rose throughout the chamber. Nearly everyone. Now, Sarah continued, how many of you would want those private words destroyed forever, even if they might help someone in the future who feels the same way you did? The appendages stayed raised, but many began to lower slowly, as representatives considered the question. Chancellor Vexana nodded thoughtfully. We face a complex problem. Privacy versus preservation. Individual rights versus collective benefit. Personal choice versus cultural legacy. She looked at Arya. Dr. Chen, you've been at the center of this discovery. You've seen both the violation and the value. Do you have a suggestion? Arya stood again, her mind racing. She thought about her grandmother's privacy and her great-great-grandfather's lost words. She thought about the student who might find courage in someone else's scared journal entry. She thought about the balance between protecting people and helping them. I might have an idea, Arya said slowly. But it requires trust, technology, and something humans do better than most species. What's that? Chancellor Vexana asked. Compassion, Arya replied. Compassion for the writers who deserve privacy, and compassion for the readers who need hope. Let me propose a solution. The entire chamber leaned forward, waiting to hear what the human professor would suggest. Arya took a deep breath and stepped to the center of the council chamber. All eyes, and various alien sensory organs, focused on her. What if we created something called the Archive of Whispers? She began. A protected database where every document remains sealed for 100 years after the original writer passes away. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Arya continued quickly. During those 100 years, the writer's descendants can make choices. They can choose to unseal the document and share it with the world. They can keep it sealed even longer. Or, they can select specific pieces to release while keeping others private forever. Ambassador Liu frowned. But what about documents from people who have no living relatives? Those remain sealed but preserved. Arya explained. We protect them, honor them, but don't expose them unless there's a clear historical reason and an ethics board approves. Corvell, watching from the student section, nodded with approval. The logic was sound, but that only addresses part of the problem, Dr. Webb pointed out. What about creating new preserved writings? Do we just stop collecting human thoughts? Arya smiled. No. We give humans a choice. I propose a second program called Legacy Letters. We invite people across Earth and all human colonies to write letters, journals, or poems specifically intended for the future. They know from the start that these words will be preserved and shared. This separates accidental preservation from intentional legacy. The chamber buzzed with discussion. A Teppan counselor raised a small paw. This gives choice back to the writers. I like this approach. Thulmaris's shimmering form brightened slightly. May I add something to this proposal? Chancellor Vexana gestured for them to speak. As a Chronari, I experience time differently, Thulmaris explained. I can perceive a person's intentions across their entire timeline. With their consent, I could examine the life pattern of a writer who has passed and determine whether they would have wanted their words preserved or destroyed. That's not perfect, Arya admitted. But combined with descendant choice and ethical oversight, it provides guidance without violating free will. Zeftar stood up from the student section, speaking with unusual boldness. Professor Chen, may I suggest adding one more protection? No private document should ever be used for commercial purposes or mockery. These writings should be treated as sacred, cultural heritage. Excellent addition, Chancellor Vexana said. Are there other suggestions? Over the next hours, representatives from various species contributed ideas. A Grath warrior suggested that each species could create their own version of legacy letters, sharing their inner thoughts with future generations. A Zenthari philosopher proposed creating an ethics board with members from multiple species to oversee the archive. Arya and the human delegation worked with Thulmaris to create detailed safeguards. Every sealed document would be encrypted and protected by multiple security systems. Only authorized family members or the ethics board could access them before the 100-year period ended. All documents already in Thulmaris's collection would be reviewed. Families would be contacted and given full choice over their ancestors' writings. The Legacy Letters program would launch across all human worlds, with clear information that these writings were intended for preservation. A special team would work with Thulmaris to establish proper protocols for using Chronari time perception abilities ethically. No document could ever be sold, used in advertising, or presented in a disrespectful manner. As these plans took shape, something unexpected happened. Arya's grandmother's hologram appeared again in the witness area. I've made my decision, she announced. I want my journal entry to remain in the archive. Keep it sealed until after I pass, but then, let it stay. If my fear and my choice to be brave anyway helps even one person, it's worth it. Her words inspired others. Throughout the chamber, Humans began accessing their personal devices, checking if their relatives' writings were in Tholmaris's collection. Many started making similar choices. But it wasn't just approval. Some families requested their ancestors' letters be permanently sealed or even destroyed. Arya made sure the protocols respected these choices equally. During a break in the session, Arya found herself standing with Tholmaris near a window overlooking the stars. "I was wrong," the Chronari said quietly. "I saw the beauty in human writing and wanted to preserve it, but I didn't consider the cost of taking choice away." "You were trying to save something precious," Arya replied. "Your intentions were good, even if your methods were flawed." "That's very human, actually." Tholmaris's form flickered with what might have been amusement. "Perhaps I spent too much time reading human hearts. Some of your tendency toward emotional decisions affected me." "Emotional decisions aren't always wrong," Arya said. "They just need to be balanced with respect for others." When the session reconvened, Chancellor Vexana called for a vote. All in favor of establishing the Archive of Whispers and the Legacy Letters program, with the protections and ethics boards as discussed. Hands, tentacles, wings, and appendages rose throughout the chamber. The vote was nearly unanimous. All opposed? Only a handful of representatives abstained, wanting more time to review the details. "The motion passes," Chancellor Vexana declared. "Keeper Tholmaris, you will work with Dr. Chen and a newly formed oversight committee to implement these programs. Your collection will be transferred to proper archive facilities, with all discussed protections in place." Tholmaris bowed deeply, their form shifting through expressions of gratitude across multiple time streams. "Thank you. I will dedicate myself to doing this correctly." Number 4. As the session ended, something remarkable happened. Representatives from other species began approaching the human delegation with questions. "Could the Velcarians create our own legacy letters?" one asked. "The Grath would like to explore this idea of intentionally sharing inner thoughts," another said. A Zenthari philosopher looked thoughtful. "We've always valued logic over emotion in our official records. But perhaps we've been missing something important by not preserving personal perspectives." Mira bounced excitedly next to Arya, her fur bright, happy yellow. "Professor!" They're all inspired by human writing customs. Arya watched as species after species expressed interest in creating their own versions of the program. What had started as a conflict over privacy had transformed into something bigger, a galaxy-wide movement to honor personal thoughts and feelings as valuable cultural heritage. Later that evening, Arya sat in her temporary quarters on Unity Prime, writing. She opened a fresh document on her tablet and titled it, "My First Legacy Letter." She began, "To whoever reads this in the future. Today, something amazing happened. We turned a problem into a bridge. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council's historic decision." Arya stood in the newly constructed Archive of Whispers facility on Unity Prime, watching teams of archivists carefully transfer Tholmaris's collection into secure, protected storage. Each document was being cataloged with love and respect. Family members received notifications about their ancestors' writings. Some chose to unseal them immediately. Others added extra time to the seal. A few requested permanent privacy. Every choice was honored. But the real surprise was happening across human space and beyond. The Legacy Letters program had exploded in popularity. Millions of humans were writing letters to the future. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "Professor Chen, you need to see this," Zeftar called out, waving all 4 arms excitedly. Arya walked over to the display screens showing submission statistics. Her eyes widened. 15 million legacy letters in 6 months? That's incredible. "And look at the categories," Mira added, her fur rippling with excited pink colors. Children writing to their future selves. Scientists documenting daily discoveries. Artists explaining their inspirations. grandparents sharing life lessons, even teenagers leaving messages of hope for other teenagers. They'll never meet. Corvell pulled up specific examples. This one is from an 8-year-old named Tommy. He wrote, "Dear future person, if you're sad, remember that cookies help. Also, dogs are very good. Simple, but honest." Arya smiled, reading more letters. A doctor had written about why she chose medicine, not the heroic reasons, but the small moment when a patient thanked her for listening. A teacher wrote about the student who struggled but never gave up, and how that inspired him to be better. An elderly woman wrote about her first love, her heartbreak, and the lesson that pain doesn't last forever. These aren't just historical records, Arya said softly. They're gifts. Each person is reaching across time to connect with someone they'll never meet. Thulmaris appeared beside them, their shimmering form more stable now. Working with the ethics committee and learning to ask permission before preserving anything had changed the Chronari. They seemed more grounded in the present moment. The Legacy Letters program is spreading to other species, Thulmaris reported. The Valkyrians started their own version last week. They're calling it Voices Through Time. The Grath too, Zeftar added, though their version is very different. They're writing about personal battles, not physical ones, but internal struggles with honor, duty, and fear. It's actually quite moving. Over the following weeks, more species joined the movement. The logical Zenthari created Philosophical Reflections for Future Minds, where they documented their personal journey toward understanding rather than just their conclusions. The artistic Tepans began creating emotional portraits, writings that captured specific feelings in vivid detail for future generations to experience. Each species adapted the concept to fit their culture, but the core idea remained the same: intentionally sharing authentic inner thoughts with the future. One afternoon, Arya received a message from her grandmother. "Sweetheart, I need you to come home. There's something I want to show you." Arya took leave from the archive and traveled to Earth. She found her grandmother in her Seattle home, surrounded by boxes of old photographs and mementos. "I've been thinking about legacy letters," her grandmother said, settling into her favorite chair. "I gave permission for that one journal entry to eventually be shared. But I want to write something new. Something intentional." She handed Arya a handwritten letter. Her grandmother still preferred paper and pen for important things. "I wrote about my whole life," her grandmother explained. "The mistakes I made, the lessons I learned, the love I found, the grief I survived. Everything I wish I could tell my younger self, but formatted as advice for any young person who might need it." Arya read the letter, tears filling her eyes. Her grandmother had been honest about failures and fears, about moments of weakness and moments of strength. She'd written about learning that being brave doesn't mean not being scared, it means being scared and choosing to move forward anyway. "This is beautiful, Grandma," Arya whispered. "I want it in the Legacy Letters archive," her grandmother said firmly. "Sealed until after I'm gone, of course. But then, I want it to help someone. Anyone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggles." Arya hugged her grandmother tightly. "I'll make sure it's preserved perfectly." Back at the archive, Arya shared her grandmother's letter with the ethics committee as an example of what the program meant to people. The committee members, representing 5 different species, were visibly moved. "This is what we're protecting," said the Valkyrian member. "Not just words on paper, but human connection across the barrier of time." 3 months later, the Archive of Whispers held its official opening ceremony. Representatives from across the galaxy attended. Chancellor Vexana gave a speech about the importance of preserving authentic voices while respecting privacy. But the most powerful moment came when a young human student named Maya stood up to speak. She was 16, quiet and nervous. "Last month, I was having a really hard time," Maya said, her voice shaking slightly. "I felt alone and scared about my future. Then I read a legacy letter in the public database. It was from a teenager who lived 100 years ago. She wrote about feeling exactly the same way I did. Maya's voice grew stronger. She wrote that she didn't know if things would get better, but she was going to try anyway. She wrote, "Dear future reader, I hope you know you're not alone. Someone from the past believes in you." Those words saved me. They gave me hope when I had none. The chamber was completely silent as Maya continued. So I wrote my own legacy letter. Because maybe someday, someone will need to hear that they matter, that their feelings are valid, that someone else understands. She paused, looking around at all the different species present. That's what this archive really is. It's proof that we're all connected, even across time and space. After the ceremony, Arya found Thulmaris standing alone near a window, looking out at the stars. "You were right," Arya said gently. "Human writing does contain something special, but it's not just the beauty of the words." "What is it?" Thulmaris asked. "It's the courage," Arya replied. "The courage to be honest about our fears and hopes. The courage to believe our feelings matter. The courage to share our hearts with people we'll never meet, trusting that those words will find someone who needs them." Thulmaris's form shimmered with understanding. And now other species are learning that same courage. Arya nodded. "You wanted to preserve human hearts. Instead, you taught the galaxy how to open their own hearts." That evening, Arya sat in her office and opened her legacy letters file. She'd been adding to it regularly, documenting her journey from discovering the mysterious tablet to helping create the archive. She wrote a new entry. "To the teacher reading this someday, trust your students. Some of my students, Zeftar, Mira, Corvel, helped change galactic history. Not because I taught them everything, but because I believed they had something valuable to contribute. Your students do too." As she saved the letter, Arya thought about all the other letters being written across the galaxy at that very moment. Children writing to their future selves, scientists sharing their wonder at discoveries, artists explaining what moved them, ordinary people offering hope and wisdom to strangers in the future. Millions of voices reaching across time, saying the same essential thing. You matter. You're not alone. Someone understands. The Archive of Whispers had become more than a storage facility for old documents. It had become a bridge connecting past to future, individual to individual, heart to heart. And it all started because one Chronari couldn't bear to let beautiful human words disappear, and one human professor chose compassion over anger. Arya smiled, looking at her completed legacy letter. Someday, perhaps centuries from now, another teacher would read these words and feel encouraged. Another student would find inspiration. Another person would feel less alone. That was the true gift of the archive, not preserving the past, but lighting the way forward with the courage of those who came before. Outside her window, stars filled the darkness. Each one, a sun-lighting worlds where people were writing their hearts onto pages, digital files, or whatever medium their species preferred. All of them reaching forward through time, whispering, "I was here. I felt. I hoped. And I believe in you."